Hi, this is H.D. Chambers, Superintendent of Schools for Alief ISD, and I'm here to share a little bit of the framework that we have been working on as it relates to the beginning of the 2021 school year. I know everyone, parents, staff, community members, are eagerly awaiting some details, and I'm going to attempt to provide some information. I can't promise you their details, but I'm going to attempt to provide you some information that kind of creates this framework for how we're going to re-enter and recover for the 2021 school year. There's a large group of people, a task force, if you will, that I've mentioned before, that have been working diligently on a lot of different fronts. And I'm going to try to cover a little bit on each one of these fronts in this video to give you a glimpse into the kind of how the work of the Reentry Task Force is coming along, and some things that you as a parent, you as a staff member, or as a community member can begin making plans for. Lastly, just like COVID-19, it's an evolving thing. Over the last couple of weeks, you and I both know that the number of cases in the greater Houston area, as well as across the state, have spiked tremendously. And it doesn't appear there's going to be a slowdown in that. So as COVID-19 evolves and as decisions from our state and local leaders evolve, please know this framework and this plan is going to have to evolve as well. Everything I'm saying right now is subject to change. I hope it doesn't, and if it does, I hope it doesn't change significantly. But please bear with us as we wait on information from our state and local leaders, and as we make decisions moving forward that may have to be adjusted based on what occurs in the future. So with that, I'm going to cover several things, and hopefully this is of help to you in your planning. So there's three things, if you think about it as a parent, including me, that we look for in our schools. Now, my children are out of school. They're older and moved off. But even when I was parenting them in school, there's really three things I looked for, and these are no different than you as a parent look for. One, you wanted to find a school that provided a safe and secure environment for your child. Second, you wanted a school in which your child at least enjoyed going to school. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to say they were happy every day, but they were content, and they felt good about the school they were in. And then third was obviously the learning, the academic process of teaching your child, both socially, emotionally, and academically. And as a teacher, I think we all look for the same things as well. We want to be in a place where we feel safe. We want to be in a place where we feel content, valued, a sense of kind of enjoyment, for lack of a better word. And then lastly, we want to be able to work and do what we do for a living in an environment that's supportive and cares about us, our emotions, both academically, socially, emotionally. So with that, I want to talk real quickly about the safety and security and the health-related matters that we're considering as a part of our framework. So I think it's safe to say that you can expect, as a parent and as a staff member, that we are going to have multiple safety protocols in place as expectations and in some cases requirements. And I want to distinguish between those two because, as you know, there are certain things I can require and then there's other things I can require and I can enforce. But like any other issue in schools, it's the consistency in which we apply it. It's the reasonableness in which we ask both parents and staff members to take advantage of what we're putting in place. So I'm going to give you these outlining requirements and expectations on safety, knowing that we're going to have to refine and get into some more details as soon as possible. So let's talk about masks. I think it's safe to say we're going to expect everyone to be wearing a mask, including staff, including students, visitors that may visit our schools. Now, the first question that comes up is, who's going to provide them? What are we going to do about younger students who aren't able to wear them? Just know that we're going to work through the logistics of that, of all those issues about the students and staff members with masks. But just be prepared that we're going to expect there's going to be some guidelines and expectations on everyone wearing masks. The second has to do with hand sanitizers and just hygiene. Yes, we are going to provide multiple hand washing stations, if you will, as well as sanitizing soap and things of that nature. And it's just going to have to become part of our culture, part of our practice, that we remind students to wash their hands. We remind students to keep their masks on. We remind students to do things that we've never reminded them of, but we've done this before in school. We remind little ones to stay in line when they're in the hallway. We remind older kids to wear their ID badges all the time. I mean, we're constantly doing these things, and we're just going to have to add masks and hand sanitizers and things of that nature to our list of constant reminders, continually reminding them. The third thing we're looking at is self-reporting, self-screening for both parents and for staff members. This means taking, and this is where I don't have some details yet, but just know we're going to be expecting everyone to perform self-screening of yourself before coming into work almost every day, so that we try to minimize those who may be exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 and they are staying home. You know the laundry list of symptoms. I don't have to list those out for you, but we're going to have a checklist. It's going to be some type of checklist where we're going to expect people to check that list daily and address them accordingly. So you got masks, you've got the hand sanitizers, the hygiene portion of it, and then the self-screening, the self-reporting of concerns or problems or possible issues that either a child may have or a staff member may have related to the COVID-19 virus. Temperature checks, that comes up a lot. Are we going to check everyone's temperature? We have ordered, and we have somewhere in the neighborhood of over 1,000 of these new thermal temperature checks for individuals. And we are working through the process right now of how to best utilize those. So yes, there are going to be certain expectations of checking temperature. I just don't know exactly to the degree how we're going to do that. Our task force that's assigned to the health and safety of students and staff are working on that as we speak. We're looking at a variety of different social distancing processes in our classrooms to ensure students are safely distanced apart in the classroom. So there's a lot of logistics in terms of space, not only in the classroom, but in hallways, in cafeterias, at the bus stop where students are getting on the bus and getting off the bus. And so all of these things we're working on right now to create some logistics as to how that would best suit and meet our needs for a safe and healthy environment in our schools. So those issues, masks, hygiene, the temperature checks, the pre-screening, the self-reporting, and then how we set up our facility so that we ensure or do the best we can to ensure there's proper social distancing are all going to be part of our plan and part of the ultimate framework on how we re-enter school. One question that comes up quite often related to the safety and health of our students and our staff is, and it's a what if question, and quite frankly it's not necessarily an if question, it's a when it happens question, and that is, what are we going to do whenever a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19 and we know they were in our schools at some point during that day? We are waiting on some guidance right now from the state of Texas on the appropriate protocols to respond to a positive case on our campus once we open school. But I can tell you a couple of things are going to occur immediately. One, we're going to close that school. And for how long, I don't know yet. I will have an answer to that question the closer we get to school. But please know we're going to close that school as soon as we possibly can. And there will be a thorough cleaning of the building, obviously, and disinfecting, etc. The guidance that I mentioned earlier from the state will help us decide how many days do we need to keep that school closed. So we'll talk more about the days that it's closed at a later date. But I want everyone to know that our reaction will be consistent. Once we learn the guidance, it will be consistent, and we will apply that across the district from campus to campus, depending on what campus this might occur on. So I know that's on people's minds, and as I mentioned, it's going to happen. We just need to all be prepared for it. But we're preparing a very standardized way of addressing each time that situation happens, and I will give you more detailed information over the next couple of weeks. The next big issue our Reentry and Recovery Task Force worked on was, what is teaching and learning going to look like for the 2021 school year? I know there's lots of questions, lots of concerns by both parents and families, as well as our teachers and our staff members, about what's it gonna look like. So in a way in which we can meet the needs of the safety of our students and our staff, we're going to be looking at a variety of different options and choices for every parent. Those options are going to range from actually having children attend in person, in school, practicing all the safety protocols that I've mentioned. So we're going to have a segment of students that are going to be in school. And if you are, as a parent, are interested, or you feel comfortable in your child attending school with the safety protocols and processes we had in place, we are going to be prepared for those children in school like we always have. Our teachers will be prepared, our campuses will be prepared, the teaching and learning processes will be prepared, and nothing will be much different than the past, other than these very strict and prescriptive safety processes that I've mentioned earlier. We're also going to have an option for parents who are not comfortable sending their children back to school. And those options are going to be, and I'm using this term, but it's going to be kind of remote learning at home, similar to what we did during the spring, but with a much more, with much more training and much more opportunities for families. If you can envision, as a parent, you're going to be looking at an option for your child to attend school, or you're going to be looking at an option for your child to be taught virtually. And we're going to have, on the virtual side, we're going to really have two options for parents. One is going to be A-Leaf Learns, which is what we rolled out in the spring, and we have continued to perfect and to improve upon over the summer with our summer learning program and all of our students in summer school. So you're going to have an opportunity for that. There's also going to be an A-Leaf Virtual School. And this is a little bit different than A-Leaf Learns, and it's going to be different in terms of the types of students who may best be served in this. You're going to learn more about these in the future, but just as a parent, know you're going to have options. Yes, I can send my child back to school in person with all the safety processes in place I mentioned, or I will have a choice if I choose for my child to be educated at home between two different types of technology-based learning platforms. You will hear more about that very soon. So just be aware, these are coming, but as a parent, be thinking in those terms. As a teacher, you're going to be, if you don't already realize this or you haven't been in communication with your campus, we will be looking at teachers for those that will be teaching in-person classroom, in-person classes, as well as teachers that will be teaching using either the A-Leaf Learns or the A-Leaf Virtual School platforms. So there will be choices, there will be options, and we will do everything we can do to communicate to the best of our ability the details on which one, on what you may select as a parent. Next part of our framework is going to require some strong cooperation from parents and families of our students. So this part of the message is really specific to our families. We're going to need to know what your choice is. And as I mentioned earlier, the choice is between your child receiving in-person, face-to-face teaching in a school, or one of those two online platforms that I just mentioned. So here's what's getting ready to happen. Next week, the week of June the 29th, every one of our parents in our district that we have accurate cell phone numbers for, you're going to receive a text. It's going to be from A-Leaf ISD. Please be looking for this text. Please do not ignore it, because this text is going to ask you a very simple question. What do you prefer for your children? Do you prefer in person, in school, or do you prefer virtual, at home? You're not going to have to answer the specific details that I just mentioned earlier. It's just going to in person or virtual, okay? That text is going to be collected, and we know what parent responded. That text is going to be that information is going to be collected, and we're going to begin building and looking at just what our parents are asking for. And then the first part of July, you're going to receive a second communication basically asking you to enroll your students in one of those two areas, which at that point will give you a little bit more information and details on what you're expecting. So this first text message is just to get an idea of what % of our student population may be coming back in person, and what percent may be expecting to be taught online. That's going to help us with a lot of different decision points for us. The next communication at the beginning of July is going to go a little bit deeper, and it's going to talk about those of you with multiple children. You may have different children. You may have a child in elementary school and intermediate school, or a child in middle school and high school. It'll give you a chance to answer those questions so that we reflect, so that your answers reflect every child in your household. Those two pieces of information over the next couple of weeks are critical to our decision making and our ability to build schedules and to make sure that your child is in the right setting when we get ready to open school on August the 6th. So help me, please help me help us in responding to those two pieces of information. I just want you to know that the motivation behind this is to simply be as accurate as we possibly can, to be as organized as we possibly can, knowing that it's going to be a challenge to be 100% perfect on every single person's desire, but we are going to do everything we can do to get this information ahead of time, have it ready to go so that August 6th your child is ready to be taught either virtually or in person in our school. Along these lines, teachers, staff members on campuses, I want you to know your campus administration, your principals, your leadership teams will be reaching out to you over the next couple of weeks, if they haven't already, because I know some have probably already started doing this, but they'll be reaching out to you to begin making decisions on teaching assignments and things of that nature based on a lot of factors. Obviously based on our students and what they're choosing to do, based on your strengths, your desires, and then obviously based on health-related matters. And I want to be really clear to our teaching staff that we are doing everything we can do to make sure that we meet the needs of staff members who have legitimate underlying health concerns related to this virus. We all know that there are certain segments of our population that have health conditions that make them more susceptible to COVID-19. I will not put any teacher, any staff member in a position that jeopardizes their health. So we're going to have a process for that, and it's going to start with campuses talking to you, but we're also going to have to involve our Human Resources Department and our Risk Benefits Department on identifying those with true underlying health conditions and working through those processes and making sure we accommodate that employee in a way in which doesn't put them, doesn't jeopardize their health. And then we're going to have to work with those who are just worried. And I want to be really frank. I mean, we're all worried. I think there's all a certain level of worry that we all have about what's going on, particularly with the increase in number of cases. But there's a difference between worrying about it and then actually having an underlying health condition that we really need to pay attention to. And I'm going to be sympathetic to both, but I want to be really candid about how we look at both of these, how we look at both of these scenarios. So more information will be coming to you as a staff member from your supervisor, from your principal, etc., real soon about the next steps for what your role may be and how we're going to handle your safety and your well-being. I know I've just shared a lot of information with you, but I also know there's a lot of details that I have not shared with you that you're probably asking about. And trust me, all these details that's kind of, you know, running around in your mind or running around in our mind as well, and we're working diligently to answer those questions. But please know we're reaching out and attempting to talk to as many people as we can to get answers and to share as much information as we can. This morning, as a matter of fact, I met with my superintendent's teacher advisory committee as well as our principals and just had a good dialogue about what we were doing, where we were, and there were literally probably hundreds of questions that were being typed in the chat box that we have collected and we will be responding to, and we will be taking those questions and incorporating them into our decision making and our planning, because there are many things that we may not have thought about that our teacher advisory group reminded us of or brought to our attention. But I want you to know that we're going to do everything we can do to answer as many questions as we possibly can, as I mentioned earlier, so that we have a very smooth, for like, it's a relative term these days, but have a smooth opening on August the 6th. If you don't have, if your question was not answered, or if you have a burning question that you need answered, I encourage you to do one of two things, or one of three things really. One, ask your staff, your campus principal or your campus leadership or your supervisor. If that doesn't help, or if you don't get an answer, I would encourage you to go to our frequently asked questions component on our COVID-19 webpage at alefisd.net. And then third, last but certainly not least, there's a Contact Us link on our homepage. If you click on that, you can go in and you can there's a process for you to ask questions or make comments. And if you need a response or an answer, I encourage you to leave an email address so we can respond back to you. If not, then we will try to answer that question in our FAQs at some point. So you're going to hear more and more details from me and from others as we move forward. But today, I want to give you the framework of both how we're going to address safety and security and the health of our staff and students, how we're planning to look at the education of our students, both academically, socially, emotionally, and then how we're going to communicate with you and how we need you to help us in responding to the questions of what is your desire? Do you want 100% in-person learning for your child? Do you want 100% virtual learning for your child? With that, more information to come. Thank you for your patience and your attendance and listening to this. And with that, God bless every one of you.